There's part 6 right there in 498. We're still in the cranial nerves. And here we have one more little diagram of the facial nerve outflow. Notice, let's go back here for just a second, because the part that takes care of the muscles over here is a part that I should probably spend a little bit more time with. Of course, the nerve originally goes right in here to the internal acoustic meatus along with cranial nerve 8. We learned that at the beginning of the course. But then we noticed that we're actually going to come on down, as it were, in this direction. And part of the deal here is that it's going to exit at the Stylomastoid foramen. Okay, so you have to think to yourself, oh, styloid process. And then there's the mastoid process, both in the temporal bone, and there's a little opening right there for the cranial nerve number 7 to come out, and then it branches. It's actually branching in front of the ear, right in front of your little tragus, into 5 branches. Okay, so I wanted to make that clear. And then we have to Zanzibar bimotor car, which is the temporal, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular, cervical branches right there. Okay, that's 7. Now number 8. Number 8 is also a little bit on the busy side here. It's also coming through the internal acoustic meatus, just the way you like it. And then it's going to get to all of this interior bone space here, where we have a fabulous, I love this part. When we get to chapter 15, I just go nuts with this. This is a gross anatomy feature here, which is, it's actually this blue stuff in here. This is a labyrinth, as it were, of little, how shall I say, duct tissue. You know, it's an epithelial tissue, and then it contains endothelium, which is intracellular fluid. Okay, it's so special. It's potassium rich. Outside of here, do you see that we're in that space outside that has perilymph, but inside where the blueness is, we have endolymph. Endolymph is intracellular fluid. Anyways, I'll go over that again when we get to it in chapter 15. The deal here is that this is all about sound. We have this unit here called the cochlea, and that's for hearing. And then over here we have balance. They like to use the term equilibrium, which of course, if you're a real chemist, you know that equilibrium is death, and that homeostatic steady state is life. Okay, so we actually want disequilibrium. We don't want equilibrium. But anyways, they keep calling balance equilibrium. So what can you do? Anyways, there's 2 parts of the nerve, vestibulocochlear. The vestibular part is over here, and this is actually going to the balance thing. So we have what's called static equilibrium over here in this part, and we have dynamic equilibrium over here in this part. So we have 2 branches of the vestibular nerve, static and dynamic, and then we have hearing. So that's what's going on with cranial nerve number 8, just the way you like that. And then over here we have cranial nerve number 9. Number 9 does a number of things really well. One, of course, is that it goes to a salivary gland. We have 3 major salivary glands on each side, and the facial nerve takes care of the 2 over here. And then the one on your cheek over here on the side is taken care of by cranial nerve number 9. There's no mucus here. There's just pure saliva, serous fluid saliva. Also, we're taking care of the posterior 1/3 of the tongue for taste, which is where we pick up a lot of the bitter flavor. Those of you who like the very dark chocolate, unsweetened chocolate, and love the bitter flavor, or those of you who like coffee or bitters or anything else that has that bitter flavor, you'll be excited to know that it's the back of your tongue right there, and it's cranial nerve number 9, the glossopharyngeal nerve, just the way you like it. Okay, then, so that's what's right here, number 9. And then over here we have, this is actually checking on blood pressure and also gases. So right over here is the only place that we can see oxygen. We normally regulate breathing through CO2, not through oxygen. Kind of an interesting detail. Life on Earth started in very low levels of oxygen. It wasn't until, a billion years later or so, in which some wise guy started to use chlorophyll and used sunlight and chlorophyll to make glucose, sugar, So the deal is that all the fiber out there in the world, that makes the plants and the trees and all of that is just basically glucose hooked together. Okay, so it's a huge, it's a huge, how would I say, frosted flake out there. So it's just all sugar. And so the byproduct, of course, was oxygen. So anyways, now we have oxygen and we have a sensor for it. But normally we regulate our breathing with CO2. And then there's blood pressure here being regulated. Okay, so, and then there is one muscle called the what's it called there? Stylopharyngeal muscle. That's one thing. It's the only muscle that's being operated here by cranial nerve 9. Okay, so then we move on to number 10. 10 is very busy. 10 is crazy busy. It's vagus. It's cranial nerve number 10, and it, like 9, 10, and 11, all pass through the jugular foramen. And number 10 is going to come down here in the neck region, and it's going to be traveling with the carotid and with the internal jugular. It's going to come in here to the aortic arch, and it's also going to regulate gases, blood gases, and blood pressure. So that's an important detail that you'll be wanting to know. Okay, what else does it do? It takes care of all of the, well, it does take care of some taste. Do you know that your palate has taste buds operated by the vagus nerve? The way, way, way back of your tongue after you've swallowed has taste buds operated by number 10. Okay, and then heart rate is regulated through number 10. It is actually slowed down. The heart really wants to take off in the biggest possible way imaginable. It's worse than a young teenager. And so the vagus kind of slows it down. So we get a good stroke volume out there. And then vagus also takes care of the lungs, and it takes care of the entire digestive system from the back of the oral cavity where the pharynx is all the way down through the esophagus into the stomach, from the stomach to the small and the large intestine. It operates the liver, it operates the spleen, has a role to play with the kidney. So vagus is so important, and basically it ends at the end of the transverse colon, right before you get the descending colon. But we'll get into that when we get into the digestive system. Okay, so that was number 10, very busy nerve. Now number 11 is technically not a cranial nerve, although I personally like to lump it together since, it's got a number. It's part of the 12, but it's actually technically, for those that are into the, technical embryology of the situation, it's below the olive, its origins. And so technically we have something on the, in the range of spinal nerves coming up here. But we're going to just ignore that for a moment. Ignore the man behind the curtain. And we're going to imagine that, yes, it's going up in through the foramen magnum. It's going to join up, number 11 here. It's going to join up with 9 and 10, and it's going to exit through the jugular foramen. We call it the accessory nerve, number 11. It's going to innervate two muscles, the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and it's going to also take care of the trapezius. So that's what it does. It's sternocleidomastoid and trapezius. Technically, it's C1 to C3, but we're going to just ignore that. And we're going to say, cranial nerve 11, accessory nerve. Okay, so, and then we have number 12. Number 12 is coming from the anterior, actually, of the olive. There's the olive now. And we're going to, actually, that should be the olive. But anyways, the deal is that the olive? Medulla oblongata. Yeah, that is the olive. So this is that's the posterior olivary sulcus. This is the anterior olivary sulcus. It's coming through the hypoglossal canal, which is right in the very side of the foramen magnum. You have to look for it carefully there. And it comes in and it innervates the tongue for motor activity. It innervates all of the muscles that end on the tongue. So we have all kinds of muscles that end on the tongue. We call them extrinsic muscles of the tongue. So I won't name them all for you. We've been there already. But at any rate, that's the hypoglossal nerve and takes care of that little deal right there, the tongue.